So in this day and age, we have things like dinosaur PETA and kaiju supporters. But for superheroes, the people that actually deserve rights and need support, completely absent. Really?
So push us down, and we get right back up again. The things you're telling me aren't making any sense. Right back up again.
So this movie picks up exactly where we left off in the previous Incredibles with fighting the Underminer. But unfortunately, the fight doesn't go as well as planned, and of course, superheroes are still technically illegal in this day and age. So what happens when the cops have these superheroes dead to rights? Better call Saul! No, seriously, Saul Goodman is in this movie, not as a lawyer this time, instead a superhero agent, kind of like Jason Bateman from Hancock.
Except there are way less drunk black guys in this movie, even though Sam Jackson is in it as well. But that doesn't matter because the Bob Odenkirk-ish type confronts our main heroes, which apparently just consist of Mr. Incredible, Mrs. Incredible, aka Elasti-Girl, and Frozone, Mr. Jackson himself. And his business is, what else? Try and get these superheroes their rights back and to be able to have them free, well, not necessarily free on the streets to be able to do their bidding, but just so that they are able to be super again, provide their abilities to the world. But their first choice is not to go with the main poster boy of Mr. Incredible, who we literally saw posters and posters and posters and world coverage and headlines about from the very first movie. Because of marketing decisions, they go with Mrs. Incredible.
And so, you guessed it, socio-political commentary. The woman of the house has to go out and do a job, and the man has to stay at home and be a father. Shockity shock.
Never ever been done before. So, yeah, that premise is sort of the reason why, well, but honestly, I was initially turned off from the idea just from that alone and from, well, basically just all the commentary and the issues nowadays that are addressed with gender roles as well as stereotypes and stuff.
Especially since it wasn't even a problem in the first movie. It's not like Elasti-Girl was just a sidekick or she was sidelined because a woman can't be a superhero. There was none of that. And they act like that was everything that she was.
I wouldn't necessarily go to that extent, particularly because she was respected as well as regarded in the first movie as well, but also the first one did go out of its way to show that she was still at home with the children, and she felt that obligation, not necessarily because
she's a mom, though. Is it wrong for a mom to be a mother?
That actually is explored in this movie when she actually still wants to be around her kids and try and have connection with her kids while still being on the job.
Well, they make it seem like, no, a woman ever being a mother is wrong. It's the dad who's got to do that job. But then they go back and forth on this idea of, oh no, she can't do it nearly as good of a job as Mr. Incredible can. And then we get this Mr. Mom bullshit where, yeah, Mr. Incredible, I guess, has never ever raised the kids before, ever, in his 15 years of their life. It's, okay, my problem is not that this is here at all. In fact, it could be here, warts and all, no change whatsoever. I just don't want them to draw as much attention to it. And by that I mean, they state this stuff verbatim, what I just said. This idea that Elasti-Girl shouldn't be a superhero because she wouldn't be as good as Mr. Incredible, and then Mr. Incredible shouldn't be a stay-at-home dad because he wouldn't be nearly as good as Elasti-Girl. If you would have just let those play out and show us not only them defeating that stereotype, I would have been fine. I wouldn't have cared. In fact, I would have said that that's a good socio-political commentary, because it's subtle, but it's subtle and effective. But just blatantly stating it makes it so much more preachy.
I will say to the idea of it that it is not very new and that it can be dull and very obvious. And I'm not saying that this isn't obvious either. What makes this work for me personally is the execution from director Brad Bird. With the settings that they do have, and with the characters that we already know and adore, they try and put them in these new, well, not necessarily new situations that would never ever be thought of, but the execution of it for me was actually very comedic. It did show that Mr. Incredible was capable early on of being able to take on this responsibility, but it does go to show that there can be an excessive nature to one specific occupation, whether that be a paid or just stay at home. It did show the excessive nature, and it did actually provide another level of depth and, I guess, appreciation for Mr. Incredible, in that he is able to be this expanded person. And yes, again, some of it is very, very obvious, but also the stuff that comes out of it can be really, really funny.
Admittedly, yes, a lot of it can be very funny. A lot of it does lead to some very good comedy, and coming from me, that's a high praise right there. Honestly, this is a lot of criticism for a movie that's just good. It's fun.
Well, and one of the fun characters that leads to most of the comedy is Jack Jack.
Yep. They market the hell out of Jack Jack for this movie, and with good reason. He is hilarious.
Jack Jack is obviously going to be the favorite part of almost everybody who watches this movie because babies are cute.
Well, let's be real here, okay? When we went to go see Storks, when we went to go see Boss Baby, those movies weren't exactly the best either.
And this actually took a page out of Boss Baby's book. As soon as Mr. Incredible starts falling asleep while telling him a story, wake up!
That was pretty funny. It is funny the way they play with Jack Jack's level of intelligence here, because even though he is still just a toddler, he picks up on a lot of things pretty quick. And
that could be one of his 17 powers, apparently.
I guess. Yeah, there's even more powers than what he had in the first one, and what was introduced in that short where he's babysat by Violet's friend.
Kari. K-A-R-I. It's like Carrie, except with A instead of A. Yeah, basically Weird Girl, which I'm actually surprised we didn't see her at all.
Oddly enough, I wasn't really looking forward to this movie, not only because the first Incredibles movies, while still good, don't get me wrong, it just wasn't a particular favorite of mine. And a lot of that came down to the fact that I just really didn't like either Dash or Violet. To me, they were gross stereotypes of what people think kids are. And the sibling rivalry thing just really bugged the hell out of me because, I mean, I'm the youngest in my family and I didn't fight with my sisters that much. It's a stereotype. People just think siblings fight because they're siblings. It's what they do, and kids are stupid, and Dash is a rambunctious little shit because, well, he's a kid, and Violet's a moody...
You didn't have the household that I did.
Not to mention, we live in a much different day and age where comic book movies and superhero movies are a dime a dozen, where they weren't nearly as common back when it first came out. So it's been over 13 years, and now it just doesn't seem nearly as much of a novel idea. That being said, this movie ended up being a lot better than I thought it was going to be, and I had a lot of fun. So you can take that for what it's worth. That being said, I still don't like Dash. I still don't like Violet. In fact, they're just as bad as they were in the first movie. Violet especially is even worse. Seriously, every scene she is in could be accompanied by a fucking Green Day song.
What's the problem with that? That sounds fucking amazing.
Don't wanna be an American idiot.
I was thinking more along the lines of,
I'm just a kid and life is a nightmare. I'm just a kid, I know that it's not fair. Nobody cares 'cause I'm alone and the world is having more fun than me.
So you mean Simple Plan?
oh, sorry, I can't tell those two apart.
Well, screw you, man. They're all different. I even have one on my shirt. Respect pop punk.
Anyways, regardless of that, it's still a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. The action's great. Elasti-Girl and Mr. Incredible are still great. We do still have problems more towards the end, but we'll get to those in the spoiler section.
Ooh, picky. Yeah, whatever. I can make fun of him all I want and not liking this as much, but with the first one, I still enjoyed how we were able to connect with the family, and we were still able, at least people like me who were in a normal family were actually able to see a superhero family just acting like a normal family, but also being able to kick ass whenever they wanted. And that's what I love particularly about this movie. I think personally that we are able to delve into the family aspect a lot better. I personally think one of the main complaints about the first movie, while it was still adored, and even by someone like me who adored the first time I ever saw it because it was an animated action movie, and it was actually better than most of action movies generally at the time. That's proven by the Academy, by the way. They won action movie awards pretty much. But one of the main complaints was that they weren't able to delve into the family. They weren't able to see too much of the like interrelationships or how they would react within their world. I see that as a huge upgrade in this, mainly due to just having the focus be on them instead of just one character, which I thought was Mr. Incredible in the first one. Granted, Mrs. Incredible, Elasti-Girl, gets a lot of time in this movie. For me, they do a very good balance of being able to show everybody like in a primal stage. And yeah, you have your complaints about Dash and Violet. For me, they weren't annoying enough. And actually, I love that you brought up the like angsty part or whatever. I thought they were actually having a tongue-in-cheek attitude about it. Just like having the over-the-top reactions, the turning invisible so you can go get ice cream for yourself. I thought those were great. I thought Dash might have been a little bit underutilized. Like we could have seen him at school interacting with any friends if he had had any. But for me, they were still upbeat. They were fun. They were energetic. And yeah, so for me, I had no problem with them at all.
I have a question for you. Do you think this movie would have been a lot more interesting if we had a time leap?
Well, it's interesting you say that. Oh god, that would have been a way better idea.
I mean, like, imagine if Dash was in high school, Violet was in college, Jack's grown up a little bit, and still trying to figure out how to use his superpowers. We obviously live in a new world where outlawing superheroes has been abolished, so now it's a genuine career choice for both Dash and Violet, and they don't know what they want to be.
Hang on. What if we question the fact that they weren't even given their superhero rights in the first place with this time lapse? That's where the socio-political commentary would have come from, where the superheroes would be fighting against the government, and since they do have more technical power going up against a superpower, and that could actually show how fighting back could be seen as a bigger threat, even though fighting for your rights is what's necessary to further your lives.
You do bring up a good point, though. In both these movies, where are the super villains? Most of the bad guys in these movies have just been smart people with gadgets, but anyone with like actual superpowers doesn't ever seem to do anything villainous. They're specifically heroes.
And they actually do mention about that early on when they find out that Jack has powers, and they're saying, "Wait, is he going to be good?"
No, I don't think that's what they meant. They meant is he going to behave himself and control it? Not like is he going to be a hero or a villain? Obviously he's going to be a hero. He's growing up in a superhero family.
Although they did toy with the idea in the first one where he would be taken away by Syndrome.
Well, okay, raised by a villain versus raised by superheroes.
Okay, true. So regardless of those possibilities that might be in the future sequel,
in another 13 years maybe,
then yeah, that might be the premise then, but we'd have to wait until we're in our fucking 40s?
How old are you?
24.
Okay, no, not 40.
Regardless, everyone came here for the same reason that a lot of other people came here. The action. And holy fuck is it amazing.
Yeah, they play around with characters' superpowers a lot more than your average Marvel movie or Marvel chaser, I guess, where everything's either just puncha or bang bang bang. You know, people are stretching all over the place. They're using psychic powers in weird ways. One girl I'm gonna call Gladys for the rest of her life because she plays with portals.
Void.
Yep.
The portal is void.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously takes advantage of the fact that it's an animated movie and not just trying to be like Marvel. That's a good compliment I can give this movie overall, is that it doesn't try to be like Marvel. It feels like a genuine continuation of the previous Incredibles movie. It's got the same style, the same humor, the same characters.
Mainly the same motivations and relationships as well, just again, increased.
Yeah.
And even at points leading to better action scenes where you're invested in the characters more because you've actually been given more time with them to understand the circumstances.
And that, of course, leads us to the villain, which is heavy spoilers. Oh, God, is it so piss-takingly obvious?
Even I can't stand up for this one that much. It's pretty weak.
So, what they're fighting at first is not a nameless, but a faceless villain called the Screenslaver.
Get it? 'Cause he uses technology.
The fact that it's a faceless villain kind of gives it away that it's under the control of somebody, and they don't want it to give it away immediately. Now, your mind might immediately go to Saul Goodman's character, but instead it's his sister sitting in the shadows.
Hipster haircut sister. Hipster sister.
There you go. She's sick of being sitting in her brother's shadow, and plus she hates superheroes because she blames them for the death of her parents. Very weak motivation to hate superheroes.
In that they relied too much on supers, and as soon as they got outlawed, some people broke into her house, and since superheroes weren't on call, which the guy had 2 phones on him, and neither one of them picked up, so the superheroes just don't have a connectable line. You blame the phone company for that at that point.
Well, I think Gazerbeam was dead at that point because of Syndrome, right?
They never give a specific time of when. Well, actually, no, because he was a superhero advocate before Saul Superman.
I guess so. But even then, what could have been interesting is that if it was actually Saul Goodman's character and he wasn't doing this for any malicious motivation or, mwahaha, I'm evil, or any monetary gain. He's doing this because he's so nostalgic for superheroes that he knows every good superhero needs a good villain, and that's exactly why he would create the Screenslaver, or at least get his sister to create it for him.
And the name would also make sense because one of the main ways that people would stay connected with superheroes and what they experience would be on TV and through the screens that surround their world.
Right. And it could even bring into question of, do we want to stop this guy? Because, I mean, taking down this villain is what's making us famous. It's what bringing people back to our side. But
and that would be a playful rendition of the twist from Unbreakable, for people who know M. Night Shyamalan movies.
But instead, it's just your ho-hum, yes, I'm evil, it was me all along, you fool.
I want revenge now. I'm gonna make sure all of you are outlawed for the rest of your days.
Which, there's a major flaw in her plan, because the way she controls superheroes is by them wearing these big goggles that
replay the screen.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be very obviously them under control of somebody else, and not just them being them? She seems to think that no one will
question the fact that everybody is wearing the exact same pair of goggles.
Or that they're speaking like robots, which they are. But no, apparently the world is just that stupid.
Yeah, this villain is weak. It's okay, and some people kind of complain that Syndrome was a weak villain, but at least he had personal connections with the main hero in this fact, and he...
Not to mention, he was a legitimate threat. I mean, he had a massive body count.
Yeah, he was a sick fuck, killing off like dozens and dozens of supers.
My biggest complaint with him was he had, again, very shitty motivation. It was, well, I met my hero when I was a kid and he didn't give me his autograph or whatever.
No. He was torn apart because he was directly told, "You're not affiliated with me. I work alone. Piss off." Again,
that's just... You consider what hell people go through on a daily basis, and that's what turns you into a supervillain. I just think, and motivation for supervillains is a very delicate thing you want to do, and when you can't come up with a decent explanation for it, it's best just to leave it completely absent. They're that way because they are. Leave it up to your imagination. Kind of like the Joker. It's not, well, my parents died when I was a kid, and
that was Batman.
Well, okay, so there's some
speculations
that that's what happened.
Okay.
He even gives many different kinds of backstories for how he became who he is.
But yeah, this villain, it's just the woman who was like, oh yeah, I'm standing in the shadow. I'm the brilliant one. I'm the genius. I am the one who controls the world.
She also is a mouthpiece for the socio-political BS at times. When I said that sometimes this movie's very blunt about it, she is. She's like, it must be good that you're out there, none of those men. I can go to Tumblr and get the same kind of bullshit. I really don't want to see this in movies.
I just have more subtlety. Other than that, I thought this was fucking awesome.
I really enjoyed this movie too. Even despite all my criticisms for it, it is still very fun. And if I like these characters more than most people, I would be applauding this movie for just how much of a genuine continuation it is. It is the same characters. It's same world. It's the same
right off the bat from the previous installment.
It's the same style, the same humor. It's in that regard, it's great. Regardless of what I think, it's a very I had a good time with it regardless. So
okay, even though I might not be jumping out of my seat praising this, I sort of had less of an opinion of the first one, considering my main complaint is it's just Mr. Incredible and his family. But this one I still fucking love. Again, going down to the great action, the great animation, the great direction from Brad Bird, who he is still, somewhat of a godsend of kids' movies, even nowadays with his 20-plus year career. But also, I still loved that they were able to... I go back to the relationships all the time. I'm just rambling about it at this point. I still loved how they were able to be a family of superheroes and do it better than Marvel even wishes they ever did with Fantastic Four. But yeah... Even with all the problems associated with it, and they can get noticeable at times, especially, again, with the storyline as well as the villain, it's still so much fun. It's still very colorful. It's still very quick, fast, logical with its fight scenes also. And it's basically just a happy, fun time. And this is also my first Pixar movie that I've seen in the past 3 years. No joke. My last Pixar movie that I saw was Inside Out. And even though this doesn't reach the heights that I had with that movie, this is still going to be the movie that I go to for probably the next 5 to 10 years with how good the action is. I actually probably am just going to buy this on Blu-ray once I do get a Blu-ray player with my cheap ass.
I'd recommend going to see it, but let's be honest, we're one of the last people to see this of the season. Wait, what's that up in the sky? Oh my god! It's the critic signal! Duty calls! How do you fucking...